All right. Good evening, everyone. JP Koster, all the way from Cape Town, South Africa. I'm a Platinum Presidential Director with Manatech and part of the $1 Million Club. And yeah, great to obviously this evening on our Tuesday Night Live. I think this is probably our fifth or sixth Tuesday Night Live we've had, and we've had some great feedback regarding the calls because I think they're very, very insightful. They're interactive. And I guess we probably go into a little bit more depth regarding, building the business, some more of the success stories, some of the challenges that people go through. As many of you know, it's all about the dream, it's about the struggle, and of course about the victory that people eventually have. And obviously very, very excited to have Kevin Robbins on the call this evening. Before I start, obviously I can share with you a little bit about Kevin, but I'm going to get him to introduce himself, a bit better. I've probably met Kevin the first time probably about 12 years ago at my very, very first manifest back in Dallas. And the one thing I can share with all of you about Kevin, he's an amazing host. So what I'm doing this evening, this is probably his what he's really, really good at doing is hosting people. I know I've done a few of the Tuesday Night Lives in America with him, and he's he's obviously a family man. I believe I know your son Jordan, right? Your son's Jordan, right, Kevin?
Jordan, yes, he is 23 years old, and then I have a daughter, Ashlyn, that's 19.
Oh, awesome. I know your son's been doing like incredible with I think he's like all-American, like with weightlifting and everything. I've been following that on Facebook. So that's awesome. But we'll get you to share a little bit more about that. So yeah, Kevin, I think maybe just over to you. Just share with us a little bit more, about your story, and I'll sort of take it from there.
Well, thank you, JP. I appreciate being here tonight. Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in. And yeah, you kind of turned the tables on me. I'm used to sitting in your chair, so that's a little different on this side. But no, I'm super happy to share my story. Hoping to get into some good things tonight. I'll just do kind of a brief, and then you can go back and dig in. But as most of you know, my father, Ray Robbins, is one of the co-founders of Manatech, and so early on, Dad really wanted me to get involved with his new business. And at the time, I was 27 years old. I was, I had a college degree. I was, fully employed, working in what we call corporate America. And I was happy, and I wasn't looking for a new opportunity at the time. And also I was healthy, generally, what I thought was healthy. And so I wasn't really interested in nutrition, didn't really understand it much at the time. So I wasn't interested in Manatech. I don't know if you've ever talked to someone, JP, that just said, hey, I'm not interested, maybe at some point in the future. But my dad was very persistent. Again, kind of a long story, but eventually got me to look at the products. I started taking the products, found out clearly, as everyone on this call knows, they're outstanding. Plant-based, non-toxic, just really providing those missing nutrients that are missing in your diet. And it just made sense to me. And so I started taking the products, started having great results. Even though I was healthy at the time, I started feeling better. I had more energy. I slept better. I played better tennis. I just realized I was just feeling more healthy than I had ever been in my life. So I was happy about that. Still never really thought the business was going to be my track. But I did start just very part-time, just kind of sharing the products with people that in my life that I thought could benefit from the product. So just from a part-time basis, it started building a couple $100 a month, which didn't, it wasn't going to change my life, but it was great. I was making a couple $100 a month. But after about 2 years, I started to get more serious about the business. I started to really recognize the potential that Manatech could bring long-term. And so I got more excited about the business side, started focusing more on it. The money started to grow. And so about 2 years after I started, I made the decision to go full-time into Manatech, and my goodness, it's been the best decision I've ever made, at least from a business perspective. The business has grown. It's been a fun ride. We can talk about, it's not always just straight up, but because I was committed to it, I really believed in this business model. It's really been rewarding. And then, you asked about my family, JP. I actually met my wife, believe it or not, on a Manatech incentive cruise. We were going on a cruise to Alaska. Again, I was like 29 years old at this time. And so we were going on a cruise to Alaska, which was awesome. The trip was awesome, but my wife was actually part of the cruise staff. She was like assistant cruise director. And so I did a lot of, socializing, and ended up just making a friendship, really. At the time, it wasn't like a major love connection, it was a friendship. And we developed that over time. Eventually, obviously, that grew into more. And then a year or so later, we got married. And then we ended up having a couple of kids. As I said at the top, my kids now are 23 and 19. But man, they have been Manatech kids, Manatech babies, throughout their entire life. My wife was taking our products, when she was pregnant. So they've been on these products before they were even born. And I think they have certainly blessed them. They're both very, very smart kids doing great things. My son's a medical student. My daughter wants to be a nurse. And so again, we've just been very blessed. My wife and I were stay-at-home parents for the most part throughout their time. And of course, now they're gone. They're off in college or doing their thing. But this business, JP, has just really blessed our family. And it's something that I'm very happy that, initially I wasn't interested, but I'm glad eventually that I told my dad yes. And that he stayed persistent. And again, it's been very rewarding, and I love what I do.
Kevin, that's awesome, man. And just on just on some of the things you mentioned, I've got two sort of questions. I think the one thing obviously that a lot of people obviously do know is that your dad's obviously one of the top income earners in the industry of all time. He's made probably, I don't know, $70-80 million in the industry. But what a lot of people don't know is actually that you also, you're one of the top income earners in Manatech. You've made quite a couple of $1 million in the industry. So I think that's just incredible. So kudos to that. The thing I want to quickly ask you is making that transition from working full time to transitioning to go full time with Manatech. Can you maybe we probably have a lot of people on the call that maybe are working full time right now. What are some of the things that you think are really important to look at, and sort of how do you transition, and also how do you set yourself up while you're working sort of full time to be able to to build your business where you can sort of walk away from it and actually focus full time on Manatech?
Wow, that's a great question, JP. Now, again, we're going back to 1996, 97. The world was different. We didn't have internet. We didn't have social media. Those sorts of things. And so I'll talk a little bit about some things I did specifically. I traveled quite a bit. I drove to various cities, around the United States to kind of build my business. But let me back up. Let me answer your question, and then we can talk about some of those things. But so here's a story that I don't often tell. So at the time when I was doing my Manatech part-time, and in the beginning, I was not focused on Manatech as a business. I was totally focused on, again, my other job. And then there were some people I knew in my life that needed the products. And so I kind of shared it with them. I didn't know a lot about the products or the business. Of course, I could connect with my dad, who would tell them a little more. But so in the beginning, I was not thinking, how do I build a business and how do I get it from here to there? I was just sharing the products with people. And I think a lot of people kind of start that way. But over time, it did grow. And as I said in my initial story, I was making a couple $100, a month. But also at the same time, I had a part-time job. And one of my best friends works in the car business. And he's a sales manager in the car business. And so he invited me to come to his car dealership on Saturdays and work on Saturdays so I could make some money. And again, I'm 20-something years old. It sounded like a great idea. And so on Saturdays, I would go to this car dealership and sell cars. And then I wouldn't be there the rest of the week. I had my full-time job. I did my Manatech a little bit on the side. And life was good. And I was making about $800 a month. And that's an important figure. I want to hold that for just that thought. So I was making about $800 US a month in the car sales, working on Saturdays. And so I did this for, I don't know, several months. And at one point, the general manager of that dealership called me into his office and he said, hey, Kevin, we appreciate all that you're doing here. He said, but honestly, some of the other salespeople are a little jealous that you only come in on Saturdays. You make pretty good money, and then you're not here any of the rest of the time. And I'm having a hard time, justifying that to some of the other salespeople. And he said, so I don't want to fire you. I actually would rather hire you full time so that you could be here all the time, but I can't have you just coming on Saturdays. And so I made the decision right then. I didn't even question it. I said, I am not doing car sales full time. And I said, so, I'm just going to have to quit. And I did. So again, that was $800 that disappeared out of my income. And the month before, my Manatech business had been about $200 or $300. Well, the month that I quit car sales, that next month, my Manatech check jumped up to about, I don't know, $600, $700, $800. It was in the ballpark where I felt like, oh my goodness. That's what really made me think maybe this Manatech thing could actually, at the time, I was thinking replace that part-time business. Maybe this could be sustainable. I had some really good fortune. My business grew at the time, and it jumped up from $200 or $300 to, like I said, maybe $600 or $700. So that got my attention, and it made me start to think that this Manatech business could be for real, that it could be something that even I could make a difference, make some income. And so it got me really more focused on the business. And I started focusing more on getting some training, on listening to, at the time, like some CDs, some tapes, reading some books. There were people in our industry that I started mentoring and asking questions, and, how do I grow this business a little more? Of course, Dad was helpful, but he was always good at making sure he connected me with other people that I respected, and that, just connected with me, so that it wasn't always just my dad helping me out. So I started to learn more, and I started to be more intentional about focusing on this business. That's a key word for me, is intentional. Instead of just every once in a while sharing the products with people just because I thought they might benefit from it, I started thinking about, how can I get better at sharing the products with people? How can I get better at sharing the business with people? The business was an area that I never talked about at the time. I didn't really understand it, but I started to figure out how to learn how to talk about the business. And so I just became a little more intentional, became a little better at what I was doing. I started supporting the people that were on my team. Like I said, I started to learn how to do meetings and trainings. And so I would start to travel. Again, this is all still part-time, still building up part-time. And so again, now let's jump forward about 2 years. And I was only making about $2,000 a month in my Manatech business when I made the decision to do this full time. Now, I was single, remember that. I didn't have a family support. I didn't have a big house payment and all that sort of stuff. But my full-time income was about $4,000 a month. And then my Manatech business wasn't even quite up to that. And so it was a big deal for me, JP, to decide to quit my full-time career. And just by the time those 2 years had passed, I was just so in love with this business. I so loved this business model. I loved everything about it and the products. And I was starting to see my income start to move up. But I just felt like I couldn't do it part-time anymore. I had too many people to support. I had too many meetings I wanted to do. I had too many trainings that needed to be done. And I just couldn't do it part-time anymore. So I made the decision. I felt like my expenses were in a place that I could manage on a lesser amount of income for a while, and know that income had the potential to grow. Now, I don't today, if somebody comes to me and has a job or has an income, I don't recommend to them to quit that immediately. I don't, because I think you need to build your Manatech business to a place where you have the confidence to know that from wherever you are, you can grow it and get to that number that's important to you to, again, sustain your family. And everybody's an individual case, depends on whether you're single or have a family, what are your expenses. So, the time just needs to be right. Clearly, I have people that, start out and they don't have another job or they don't have another career, and that's fine. You just need to be realistic about this business and know that it's something that takes time to build. Some people are faster than others, but it's clearly worth it. And that's again what I knew at the time, that it was going to be worth it for me to invest more time in the business. And therefore I needed to walk away from my full-time job that I was just, by then I was just, showing up and doing my job, still thinking about Manatech most of the time. So it just felt like it was the right time for me, JP. I don't know if that was the answer you were looking for, but that's my thought process.
No, Kevin, I think it's perfect. I just want to ask you a quick question on that. So that month you mentioned you were earning about $300 in Manatech, $400. What did you do in that month or two? I'm not sure what the time period was, to go up to $700, $800. What were some of the activities that you did that allowed you to do that? And how long did it take?
Well, again, it was a totally different comp plan back then. We have different things we were focused on. We at that time, we sold bigger kits, if you will. So I had sold several of those in that month. And so my commissions on that was pretty significant. And, we had things called a power seller bonus and all kinds of, we just had different kind of comp plan.
No. It wasn't called a power seller bonus. It was called a power bonus.
Power bonus. That's right. What a power seller bonus. That's what we have to say. Power bonus. So yeah, I sold, I had some good contacts. That month I happened to sell some big kits. I had some people on my team that also did the same thing. And, again, the money just kind of came together, but I just always looked at it as, it wasn't what I did. It's not like, boy, I went out and said, oh boy, this month I've got to do X, Y, and Z because I got to replace this income. I always looked at it as kind of like a God thing that, it just showed me that there was real potential in this other business when I didn't see it myself in the beginning. I saw my dad, of course. This part of my story, I always felt like, my dad, for those, some of you know my dad, some of you don't, but he just has a gift of being able to talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime. He can walk into a restaurant. And again, I went out with him last week. It's just, mom was there. We had some other friends that were joining us, but just walking into the table, dad just stops at this table that's, past him, walking past, and he just starts talking to them. Not about Manatech, he just talks to them. He just gets into conversation. That's just who he is. He loves to talk to people. And of course, he's very, very skilled at this business and with products. And so dad's just been able to build an incredible team by just being who he is. And so in the beginning, JP, I kind of thought you had to be that way, only that way to build this business. And that's not my it's not my personality. I can turn it on, if you will, and be outgoing and go meet people. I can do that, but that's not my core personality type. And it wasn't until I really learned that you can do this business by being who you are. Some of us, or some people, yes, are more gifted in the area of being able to speak, being able to talk to new people. But you know what? We have people that are very successful in Manatech that are quiet. Maybe some would call them shy. Some would say maybe that they hadn't accomplished anything successfully from a business standpoint in the past. Others might say that, or they might say themselves that, they were people that maybe other people didn't look at them as highly educated. And yet they were able to find success in Manatech because they believed in these products. They believed in this business model. And it wasn't until I really figured that out, that anyone could be successful in this business, even myself. It had to be about me, and doing it in being authentic with who you are, not trying to pretend to be somebody different. again, to me, that was really key to my ultimate long-term success.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that's really valuable, and I think, I mean, I've seen it in my group, I've seen it all across South Africa, and in fact, all across the world. You in our industry, I always share with when I'm doing presentations, the fact that when you go for a corporate interview, people ask you, what are your credentials, where have you been, and in our industry, that's really what it's not really all about. It's all about, where do you want to go, where do you see yourself in 2 to 5 years time, because I've seen so many people come into this industry with so much potential, but they just don't have the heart. They just don't have the courage. They just don't see the big picture. And I think sometimes, in some regard, I think it is sometimes, a little bit about timing, because I've seen a lot of people with a lot of potential that join it. The timing's probably just not right. And I think for me, that's why it's so important to carry on building relationships with people and carry on, keeping those conversations going. It might take, a conversation of 5 to 10 years to get someone on board, but that could be potentially your next platinum or your next presidential. Just something I want to ask you quickly, talking about your dad. I sort of think it's two ways. I think the one thing, it's obviously great that you've got a dad that's, so successful in the industry, but I guess it's also, because you obviously saw that through his example, and you obviously saw, the lifestyle changes that it's made. But I think probably to some regard, it must have also been very, very challenging, because you're always sort of, living in your father's shadow, because he's obviously one of the co-founders. He's, the number one associate in the company. Maybe chat to, maybe people don't very often ask you that, but I was just thinking, that must also be very, very challenging in a way as well.
Well, honestly, that was one of the reasons why in the beginning, I didn't really want to do Manatech, because it was Dad's business. It was Dad's thing. And he always, my dad always has cast a big shadow, if you will, not just in network marketing, because, his story is not that he's done this his whole life. He kind of came to network marketing later in life. And I'm not here to kind of tell Dad's story, but he's always been an entrepreneur. He was always successful at whatever, he set out to do. And so, as you said, on one hand, Dad gave a great example to me growing up about being an entrepreneur, about having your own business, what it takes to put the work in to make the money and all that sort of stuff. So great. It was a great example, and certainly very blessed and thankful to have had him as my father. But on the other hand, as you were saying, especially at the time, I was just out of university. I was wanting to kind of carve my own future. I wanted to carve my own path, if you will. So I was resistant to doing Manatech. And Dad was really great in the beginning about saying, you're not coming to work for me. I'm not your boss, if you will. And that's why, and I said earlier, Dad would kind of, if I had questions or if I needed some help, I would go to him and ask, but he really tried to be a little standoffish, and allow me to figure out how to do this business on my own. And that's why I got other mentors in the beginning, people that I, looked up to, and talked to them a lot about how they did the business and how they were successful doing it. And again, that was just part of what you were saying about, having Dad kind of walking in his shadow. But, I've now come full circle, and I recognize that, Manatech is not just Dad's company, it's all of our companies. And I feel like it's my company as much or more as my father's company now. And we all play a different part in it. And so today, I love the fact that I get to work with my dad. He's still just as active as he ever has been. Maybe a little toned down, as he's now in his mid to upper 70s. But his energy level is second to none. He just called me this morning and said, "Hey, I just met a guy, and you wanted to come do lunch with us," and blah blah blah. So that's who Dad is. And so I love working with Dad today. It's been a blessing, and love the fact that we get to do Manatech together.
Oh, awesome, man. Just on that note, I know some of the leaders, asked what are some of the biggest, maybe like 2 or 3 like things that you've learned? Like if someone's on the call this evening, like what is some like the 2 or 3 things? Because we have had your dad on, obviously, in one of the Choosing Out Lives we did. But maybe just from your point of view, like what sets your dad apart? Like, what are maybe 2 or 3 points that someone's on the call this evening for the very first time that they can actually go and apply that in their business?
Yeah. So let me think of a couple things I think that would be most impactful. I think if I think back to probably Dad's taught me a lot of lessons in life. He's one of these people that loves to give advice. He's always giving advice on whatever topic there is. He always has an opinion. But if I could probably narrow it down to one thing, the one best piece of advice my dad ever talked about, it was on having a positive attitude. And now that may seem very generic, but his point was, if you can have a positive attitude, even when things are going bad, and you can think positively about how you're going to make an improvement or be successful or whatever that is. In other words, don't wait until you have that success to be happy about it. Don't wait until you have things that have gone the right way in your life before you're happy or before you're confident. Have that positive attitude right now. And to say another way, if you believe that your success is going to happen, then why not start having that mindset right now that you already are successful? And again, whether that's about business, whether that's about maybe your health, but just have that positive mindset right now. To me, that has been invaluable, not only in my life and not only in my Manatech career, but how I've raised my kids. That if you interviewed my kids today, they would probably say that the number one thing that I preach about is to always do their best and to have a good attitude. I'm not so worried about their grades. I'm not so worried about, are you successful in the world's terms and whatever it is that you're doing, but are you doing your best? Are you giving it your best effort? And do we have a good attitude about it? And to me, that's something that I gleaned that was super valuable. One other thing I want to say too, just more specific about this business is and again, I think if you're on this call, I'm not going to say something you haven't heard before, but it's important that you know why you're doing this business. It's important to know what are we trying to achieve? What's going to happen in your life? And I'm not talking about how much money you're making or how much leadership level. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's when you are successful, whatever that definition is to you, how is that going to change your life? How is your life going to be different because you're making extra income or because your health has improved in certain areas, whatever that is? When you know why you're doing Manatech, then when you have roadblocks, when you have people that disappoint you, when you have people on your team that may quit and go do something else, when you have times in your life or times in your business when you may otherwise want to quit, when you remember why you're doing this, then you will continue. You will persevere. And when you put those things together, knowing your why and persevering through tough times, I think you set yourself up to be successful. Again, that applies in anything you do, whether it's your marriage, your kids, sports, other businesses, but it particularly applies to Manatech, knowing why you're doing it and then persevering through the tough times. And I certainly, JP, learned that from my dad as well. So I think those two things, having a really strong why and having a positive attitude, probably the two things I learned from dad the most.
Yeah, Kevin, I mean, those are obviously two very generic things, but I love the way you elaborate on that because, I mean, if the why is big enough, the facts don't count. And, the one thing I specifically thought about when you were saying that is this whole thing about, faith. It's the same story that Jim Rohn talks about. I mean, if you're a farmer and you go and sow seed and you don't have the faith that actually it's going to grow a harvest, I mean, what's the point, And I think very, very often, people, get started with Manatech, they're all excited about it, but it's easy to be excited when things are growing. I mean, like anyone can be excited. I mean, like you don't even have to be, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be a professional network marketer. But the reality about it is, what do you do when the chips are down? Like when, you have people that are maybe, I'm thinking about that right now. I'm thinking about, just in the last like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, people have put so much time and effort into, with meetings and traveling there and helping them, and then they're just nowhere to be seen, and I think, it's very often, one of the tips that I can maybe give everyone on the call this evening is, very often what ends up happening is you take it personally. You think, oh shit, but it's because I didn't do enough, or, but unfortunately that's just the way it sometimes works. That's just the way it sometimes happens. And I don't want to talk about gambling, but I want to talk to you, everyone, specifically. If you think about the game of blackjack, sometimes you just can't control the hand that you're given. Sometimes the cards are not gonna fall your way, but you know what you do? You carry on playing again, and you carry on playing again, and you carry on playing again, because eventually, if you play enough, the hands are gonna turn, the tide is gonna change. And I think, for me, I just want to encourage everyone on the call this evening that maybe if you are if you've got a bad hand and you've had a couple of bad hands, I'm telling you now, it's gonna change. Just carry on playing, carry on being consistent, carry on remembering why you started. I think, as you mentioned, alluded to earlier. So I think that was really, really awesome what you shared. On to the sort of next question that I want to ask you, Kevin. Let's talk a little bit about like Manatech. I mean, I know you've had a massive influence on the compensation plan, and just from my side and from my team side, I want to obviously applaud you. I think we pretty much, I think we've got an incredible compensation plan. It's actually quite amazing to be able to actually work out and figure out what you need to do to grow your commissions, and obviously grow your group and everything. I want to just ask you a little bit about, like, so where do you sort of see Manatech sort of in the next, like, 2 to 5 years? I know, Manatech, and it's probably a two-part question. I know the one thing is, what a lot of people, if you're new on the call this evening and you haven't been part of Manatech for a long time, Manatech was a $400-500 million company back in 2007. And we had this lawsuit that was sort of really pretty much unfair, but I guess I understand why it happened. I mean, so I maybe want to get Kevin just to share a little bit about that, because if you're on the call this evening, I remember for me, the first time I looked at Manatech, I was like, oh, no, I don't know if I can get, like, I saw some of the negative stuff. And so I want to maybe just get Kevin to maybe share a little bit about that. And then the next thing I want him to talk a little bit about is, like, where to in the next 2 to 5 years. I know Manatech's, we are a multi-billion-dollar company that's not doing a multi-billion dollars yet, but we are, but we're in the infancy. We've got a product that's that I mean, other companies wish they had, but I mean, we are at the, like the surfer at the beginning of the wave. Like we're gonna catch our wave as we start opening new markets. We've got a life-changing product. We have got an incredible compensation plan. I think one of the best in the industry, definitely one of the easiest to understand. So, and we've got a massive mission. So maybe Kevin, so it's a two-part question. One is sort of, let's talk a little bit about the past. About sort of like, the times we've gone through, and then maybe talk a little bit about, where you see us in the future. So it's sort of a two-part question.
Okay. I wrote down a couple of things that you were talking about there, JP, so that I don't forget when I'm giving you my answer. So you actually, I look at it as a three-part question, because you started talking about the comp plan, then we went into the lawsuit, and then we talk about the next 2 to 5 years. And I think all of those are connected. Those are all part of our, well, they're all part of our past, but they're part of our future opportunities as well. Let me just say about the comp plan. I'm not going to talk a lot about that. But I'm really proud of the compensation plan that Manatech has put together, because, in this industry, in our particular business model, there are different kinds of compensation plans, obviously. But what I love about, just in general, what I love about the opportunity in network marketing is the ability to grow a long-term, what's sometimes referred to as an asset income. You're building an asset because you have a team of people that are consistently buying on a monthly basis. And so it's not like a one-off where, you're trading your time for money, or even making a sale at one time. When you make that sale, many cases, they're going to buy month after month after month. We have people, we just did a manifest, and this number's off the top of my head, but I think it's somewhere around 1,900. It's almost 2,000 people that are still buying today that bought in Manitech's first year. So almost 2,000 people have been buying products for more than 25 years. I mean, that is amazing. And the fact that, it really speaks to the quality and the value of our products and that sort of stuff. But at any rate, you're growing an asset. And so when you're building a compensation plan, there are certain ways that you can either minimize or maximize that asset. And historically, what direct sales companies, the way they built their compensation plan is they built them very heavy on the leadership development, in that most people in a lot of other companies similar to ours, you don't really make any money, or it's very little money at all, until you reach a certain level of leadership. And then, there's an upward shift to the curve, and you can make a significant amount of money. I used to do entire compensation trainings on this idea that in the beginning, you have to work, and you make a little bit of money. And then you work, and then you make a little bit of money. And then over time that shifts, and then you get to where you can work and make a lot of money. And, I had this whole thing built around this idea of delayed gratification, because that's the way compensation plans used to be built. Well, several years ago, things started to shift. And there were some regulatory things that came out, but also it was just a shift in the way that people were able to make money other places. And these gig economy type businesses were coming around. So some direct sales companies really shifted where they paid out most of their commissions to what's called upfront sales, to your personal production, what you do, small amount for your team. So you can make a lot more money on your personal sales. Well, that's great, but they didn't have much left over for team building. They didn't have much left over for the long-term, what we might call residual income, or the long-term opportunity to make income in the future, this career-based. And so, again, that's just the way that those companies kind of set up. So you kind of had the long-term companies, you had the upfront money. But where Manitech landed, again, this is where I'm really proud of our compensation. We wanted to, as best as we could, provide both. We wanted to create a compensation plan that really rewards people for their personal production. So that's where, obviously, like first order bonus, power seller bonus, team 2, team 4, team 6, team 8, all those are kind of really your personal production. There's a little bit of recruiting element to especially the team 2 and 4, et cetera. But we put a pretty good percentage of our total compensation into those bonuses. And I think that's really rewarding people. It's so much easier today. You asked me, JP, at the beginning about money back, in 1994. It was hard to earn money unless you sold a big pack, or unless you did something, in the beginning, because most of the commissions way back then were pushed forward into team building. And so if you didn't have a big team, it was hard to earn several $100s. Well, today it's so much, it's easier. I know it's still not quote easy, but it can come much faster in the beginning because of all the upfront bonuses. So I love that, but Manitech still created a plan that rewards very, very well for long-term team building. And we have an awesome plan for, ranking up and reaching different levels, and being able to pay people that part-time to full-time income and ultimately build a career. So that was not easy to kind of balance those things out. And we hired experts. I'm not taking credit myself. We hired experts to come in and bring us basically the best of the best. And that's the plan that we put together. So I'm very, very proud of that, JP. And so you mentioned that. I want to just put a little more detail to that. The next thing is
Sorry, Kevin, just on that point, I think just if you're if you're listening on the call this evening, I mean, the way I like to really describe our comp plan when I'm talking to new people is the fact that we've got a dual compensation plan, because a lot of companies force you to have to recruit new people to grow your income, and recruit associates and distributors. Where if you think about Manatech's compensation plan, it's a dual compensation plan, because the fact that you can actually, in fact, build your business just with customers, which I think is quite unique. I know there's not a lot of companies that do that. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, many years ago, even with the Manatech compensation plan, it was very, very much about building a team, finding new people, selling the big packs. And now it's very much driven on customer volume, which obviously I think, maybe to mention regarding the FTC and the 70% rule, it does force people to have more customers. And I think it's a benefit for Manatech being a public company, that we know that we're building something that's going to be sustainable. So sorry, I'm just adding on to that, but I mean, I just really want to say just well done, because I think we're really heading in the right direction.
Yes, I totally agree. So instead of reiterating that, I agree with what you said there, JP. It is a dual plan. You can build a nice business on customers, but again, I love the fact that there is a team building, a really, really rewarding team building aspect, so that as you bring on distributors and they sell to customers, you can make good money on that as well. So I think we've done a really great job of balancing the compensation plan in a really positive way. Okay, you mentioned the lawsuit. So as you said, Manatech started in 1994. We grew like crazy. By about the year 2007, we were turning over right around 400 million US dollars in annual sales. And so in 2007, the Texas Attorney General, and again, you can find all this by Googling, many people do, said that we were making claims that we should not have been making, that we were making health claims, is what the Texas Attorney General basically said. Then you boil it all down, they actually said the company, Manatech, wasn't making false claims. It's just that they were allowing their distributors to make those claims. And so again, back in 2007, our legal perspective, and again, this was really the legal opinion at the time, was that the company itself, we know we sell nutritional products, and those nutritional products are not a drug. They don't treat, they don't cure, same as in 2007 as it is today. But yet there was a federal law called Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act, the DSHEA, a federal law that allowed individuals to educate other people about nutritional products, nutritional intervention that they took, and what the benefits were. Again, that was a federal law. So we were operating under that, allowing our associates to give testimony and be very specific. Our associates could be very specific about what they had, what happened, because again, that was protected under federal law. The Texas Attorney General said, well, but the state of Texas, they were making claims that the state of Texas didn't allow. So long story short, they never claimed that our products didn't work. They never claimed that, we said our products did something that they didn't do. They just simply, if you boil it all down, that our distributors were making claims that the state of Texas did not allow. They just threw out the whole federal law and said, yeah, we're operating in Texas and blah, blah, blah. So that put us in a position where eventually we settled, claimed no wrong, paid a fine, and went on about our business. But it did change our methodology, if you will, about compliance. And so starting in 2007, still to today, we have a very strict policy that not only does the company not make a claim that our products are a drug or that our products cure or treat disease, because they don't. Our products provide nutrients, natural plant-based nutrients that are missing from your diet, that your body needs in order to be healthy. Now, what your body does with that, your body is designed to keep you healthy, and that's what our overall philosophy is. But we recognize that the nutrition product itself is not treating disease or not, making any claims of that sort. And so starting in 2007, we wanted our distributors to basically say the same thing. So today we don't talk about any diseases that we had, any treatments that our products make. We talk about the products in a way that support something called structure function. So in other words, we talk about our products being good for the immune system, good for cognitive benefit, good for adding energy, good for fat loss. Those are structural things within the body that we can make those claims and not disease related. So it did change the way that we talked about our product. It didn't change the products. It changed the way that we talked about our products. And it took a while to get our footing again. So as you said, sales declined for several years. But let me say something. You talk about the future, and this is what I love. So Manatech made the decision that we wanted to not just to say those things, have a good immune system. We don't just want to say that we have cognitive benefits. We wanted to prove it. And at the time, 2007, all of our studies were around disease conditions. And so most of the studies prior to 2007, we weren't able to use, but we invested in the future. We invested in our science, and we've done since then a lot of scientific studies. In many cases, I think we have 13, Dr. Nugent would know this number exactly, but I think 13 double-blind, placebo-based university studies. Those are the gold standards in the scientific community. Now we have many, many other studies that aren't necessarily double-blind, placebo-based. They're just, observational studies. But at any rate, we invested in science. We invested in the future. So we now have legal claims that we can make around our products about how much it improves the immune system, how much it improves the memory and the cognitive function, recall, all those things that are so valuable about digestion and how it improves digestion, about certain other products about fat loss and about adding energy. And so we don't just make claims, JP, we prove it. And that's what has really separated Manatech from the pack. It took a while for us to kind of get our footing, if you will. But today, that has really allowed us to separate from the pack. Because folks, if you don't know what most nutritional companies do, they have claims on their label also. They claim that they do this or they do that. Sometimes they're illegal claims, but nonetheless, they have claims on their label. Do you know why they make those claims? I don't either. They don't prove those claims. Most other nutritional companies don't do studies on their products. They don't do studies on their ingredients. We're one of the very unique companies, nutritional companies in the entire industry that actually does studies on our products and our ingredients. Do you know what most companies do? They will see another study done by a university or some other entity on some ingredient, on vitamin C or on aloe or whatever, and that it has some benefit in this particular area. Then they will simply add a bit of that ingredient to their product and make the claim. That's called borrowed science. Did they use the same ingredient the study used? Who knows? Did they use the same amount that the study used? Probably not. Did they combine that ingredient with all the other things they combined it with in their product for that study? No, they definitely did not. So how do you know that just because you got the result over here that it's going to work in this particular product? You don't. There are no studies on that product, but that's what separates Manatech. We do studies on our products and our ingredients. And so the results you see on our label or the benefits you see on our label are actual results and benefits that you are going to receive when you take these products. Not to mention the fact that 20 plus years of people taking these products, getting phenomenal, incredible results that we can't talk about today in many cases, the specifics of what happens, but we know that these products are working. So the next 2 to 5 years, JP, we are already seeing it over the last year plus. We're seeing all of our markets, as most of you know, we're obviously not just in South Africa, we're in 26 countries around the world. And we're seeing because I do have the opportunity, the privilege. I'm on the board of directors for the company. And this is a group of gentlemen and women that have the fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the company is going in the right direction, that oversee the financials of the company, et cetera. So I get a little extra insight into what Manatech's currently doing and where we're going. And we're a publicly traded company, so we tell our results every single month, whether they're good or whether they're not so good. We have to tell our results every month. But if you look at our results over the last few quarters, you're going to see a company that is growing. You're going to see a company that we're seeing growth, not just in, say, our Asian markets where we've been growing for several years, but we're seeing growth in North America. We're seeing growth in Europe. We're seeing growth in Mexico. We're seeing growth in those markets where we had not been growing for several years, because people are recognizing the value of our products, number one, but number two, our business model today is really working for people where they are today, staying home, thinking, and I don't mean staying home because of the pandemic, but people wanting to work at home, spend more time with their family, being able to have, in some cases, a side gig where they can make some extra income while they have their full-time career. That all of those things match up with what our business model performs at very, very high, at a high level. So we're seeing growth. Now, I didn't mention South Africa because I wanted to say something special about your country, your people, your leaders. JP, if we had one country that through the last, say, 5 to 10 years has always stood out as an outlier, that even when other countries like North America, Australia, Europe in particular, we're having some challenges finding our footing, being able to develop leaders, being able to grow our business. South Africa has consistently been a country that has stood out because it grows every single year. Almost every single month, it goes higher and higher in new leadership. And it's because of the people, JP, like yourself and your team, the Van der Lindes. I'm start naming people, or I'm going to leave people off, but it's because you have great leadership in South Africa. And I am not just saying that because I'm on this call. When we talk about the different countries on the board, like Chris Simons will come on representing his countries. We almost always save South Africa for last because it's good news. It's growing. It's exciting. We're getting new customers. We're getting new associates and distributors. And so we point to South Africa as an example of a country that even in tough times, and folks, frankly, the last year, 2 years, I know in South Africa has been really challenging from a legal, political environment, over the last couple of years. But yet you guys have consistently come through. You've consistently grown your business. And so if you're watching this and you've been part of that over the last couple of years, hey, I just want to say thank you. If you're watching this and you're new, I want to say that you're part of something special there in South Africa. And I respect the heck out of the leadership. I respect the heck out of people like JP, and I'm honored to be here today. But what's the future, JP, in the next 2 to 5 years? A lot of growth, a lot of excitement, a lot more money people are going to make, a lot more trips that we're going to get to go on. And we're doing something special. And our expectation as a company is, look out maybe 3 to 5 years, we're going to be a multiple of where we are today, not just 10% or 20%, but a multiple of where we are, just because we so believe in what we're doing. We so believe in our products and our technology and kind of where the world's going from a business standpoint. And we just feel like we're in the right place and we're expecting to see really nice growth. Now, I'm not saying that future looking statement as a board member. I'm saying that as a distributor, that we think that Manatech is a company that is really set for some big things in the future.
Kevin, that was awesome, man. I must say I really, really enjoyed chatting to you this evening. And, I think for all the listeners on the call this evening, I think the one thing that makes me the most proud of being a part of Manatech is the fact that, I've only ever been part of one company, that's Manatech, because I've never needed to join another company because, especially through the pandemic, I think a lot of our leaders in South Africa saw a lot of companies sort of come and go. And, and I think for me, a lot of hype and trying to sell people on a new concept and a new, we like Manatech, but just better. I'm just very, very grateful to, to you guys and to all the leaders in my team that, that have stuck to their guns. We know which product we've got. We know we've got a good compensation plan. We're always trying to improve the product and comp plan. But more importantly than that, we've got a company that's legit. We've been around for almost 30 years. We're publicly traded. We're going to be opening up a lot of new markets. So I think it's just from a timing point of view, the timing and positioning really, really matters. And I think we're at a really, really good time. And just, I think for me and the entire team, I think I just want to thank you for what you're doing. Obviously being on the board, I think it's obviously great that you obviously come from the field as well. And you've always got our interest at heart, because ultimately the associates that we are Manatech, as you mentioned earlier in the call. So thank you very much for what you do. And I think, I just want to, just from our entire team, just say thank you very much for taking the time out. And we had about 230 people on the call this evening. So I've no doubt that they were very, very inspired. And just to all of you, maybe send a message in the chat box to Kevin. And, he's obviously taken some time out, and I'm sure he'll really, really appreciate it. I know there's been some great comments and everything. So, Kevin, just from your side, any closing thoughts? And I think we'll end the call.
No, I'm just trying to look at some of the comments now. I really appreciate you guys giving some good positive comments. Hey, you know what this is right now, JP? It's fun. This is a fun business. I really enjoy what we're doing. It's fun to grow. There's no doubt it's more fun to grow than not to grow. But we're doing some really cool things. And so if you're already a part of this, like I said earlier, hey, I appreciate all that you've done to get us to this point. If you're kind of looking at Manatech, just ask the person who invited you on this call, to get some more information, to make that decision. You may not believe me, some bloke over here in the United States, but ultimately you're going to decide yourself, what this product is all about, what this company is all about, what this business is all about, and just have the faith to go for it. Have the faith to prove it to yourself that this business works, that these products can make a difference in people's lives, that M5M, we didn't talk about M5M, making a difference in hundreds of thousands of children every single day because of people like you who choose to improve your own personal health, and it also helps a child in need. So again, you tie all that together, and I think this is a fantastic company, fantastic business model, and it's really the perfect one to continue to take us forward in the 21st century.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much. Thanks to everyone that attended the call this evening. Really, really appreciate it. And I want to wish you all the best for the week ahead. And let's make sure that we make October an incredible month. Let's end the year strong. And I just want to wish you all the best for the rest of the week. Cheers, guys. Have a good evening. Thanks, Kevin.